Hi everyone, welcome back to Chibi Chats.
Chibi Chats.
My name's Hiroshi and this is...
PinKurumi.
And today we're going to play Long Live the Queen. And we're going to talk about a few animes. So just a little note on the format change. We actually decided that the format was a bit too long last time.
It wasn't quite as chibi as we were, as the name describes. 30 minutes is a long time, and so we're trying to cut down the format a little bit, so let us know what you think.
Yeah, we've split how we're going to talk about the animes, and so let's hear what your thoughts are. This is Long Live the Queen. As you can see, it's a visual novel. It's made by Hanako Games, and it's fairly old now, but it is a spiritual successor to Princess Maker, which was a great visual novel in its day, and really was a top candidate. So we're gonna just go through. This is Elodie. She's the crown princess, and this is her dad. And the story that we're going through now is that Elodie's mother's just died. Her dad's kind of blasé. He's just like, yeah, so what? This happens. And as you can see, Elodie's all sad. One thing I really love about this game actually is the art styles. I love how, look at her face. She's so cute, but yet she's so sad at the same time. What do you think?
Well, I've really enjoyed playing through this game. One of the things is that you progress through the game by building her skill set, and so you choose what classes you can become expert in, and it actually really affects the long-term results of the game. There are many endings to the game, both good endings and bad endings, and all of the endings are hilarious in their own way. So there sometimes you make it all the way proper, and I think we've only made it all the way to the very end with everything going correct, I think, one time. But it's so fun to go back and choose.
Yeah, I think you really have to think of a game plan sometimes to get to the end, especially in your first playthrough, and that may put some players off. But the bad endings are funny, they're hilarious. It's got a great dark humor about it, and as I said, the visuals are just so cute, so easy on the eye.
Something also that's really great about this, and you'll see that I'm gonna choose what her morning classes, evening classes. You can go in and kind of every time you get kind of this reset screen, you get a chance to build up her stats, and I can show you that in a bit up here. And as you build these stats with different activities and different exposures as we get into the game, you're going to notice that, like I said, each one of these decisions will affect at some point in the game. There was, not to spoil anything, but I remember that it was the power of music that got me out of a situation that was really, it came out of nowhere, and it was one of those things where I just personally like music, and I felt like it really was not going to have any sort of impact whatsoever, and next thing you know, it really ended up being like the true lifesaver. And now over here, see how it increases. There's an increase with your stats with every activity. Sometimes not. So, she's still sad. I mean, her mom died. We can give her a break.
So some things will change your mood, and you can see now she's smiley, she's happy. Again, I think the art style just really got me into this game. I probably wouldn't have bought it if not for the art style.
I think also too, there's a big, Daniel said, is that it's an older game, but the visual novels are making a comeback, especially in Steam. But one thing I've noticed is that they're lacking the innocence, really, of this kind of game. A lot of them are, let's see, how many, which girl you can choose to fall in love with, which boy you can choose to fall in love with. A lot of them are kind of more are dating sims, and this really is kind of more of an adventure novel, and I think that's one of the reasons I've also really enjoyed it, and I haven't necessarily jumped into other visual novels. Now in this screen you'll see you can actually choose where you can choose the star moments are kind of your main event, but you can choose to interact with these little movements to put your stats up. So
To change your mood. And just a final note on what you were saying there. I really do think that the lore in this game is quite in depth. If you study the lore, yeah, so you can see how the hearts dictate your mood here. But if you study the lore of the game, you will find that it is really quite in depth, and I think it's that depth that is lacking in the more modern visual novels that I've played. So we're just gonna play on. Hopefully, you'll get to see a chibi death at some point. Um, Again, we're going to talk about 3 anime from the current anime season, which is autumn 2017. And the first anime we're going to talk about is Yuuki Yuina wa Yushi de Aru, which translates roughly to Yuki Unita is a hero. So this is a Magic Girl anime. It's got a lot of like the visuals of Madoka when they're having battles. It's got that really artsy feel to it. The intro is pretty intense, quite badass monologuing. But I think that this one of the problems with this anime is that it seemed to jump between tones. You had this very formal dinner, then you had a little bit of like a school life in there. Then you had this fighting sequence. Then it jumped back to school life. I think that jumping between tones really gave a confusing first episode. What were you trying to be? That's the question that I want to see from a first episode. What is the plot and what's it trying to achieve?
it was really hard. I thought it was going to be kind of a school life thing. There was kind of the undertones of this religious undertone in there. I thought, maybe maybe it was going to be, it was just hard to predict. And then really truly it felt kind of out of nowhere. They were jumped into a magical world, and here we go, all of a sudden, oh, there we go, a little willful. All of a sudden they're fighting monsters. They have magic girl transformations. It just felt like, I love magic girl animes, and I was just like, where did that even come from? It was just not something that I was expecting, or that I think that really set up, that was really set up well enough for me to like, oh, this is a magic girl anime. Mostly I was like, okay, so now it's a magic girl anime. And it was alright. It was just really weird. They fought this bubble creature.
Yeah,
and
the tone really bounced around, and sorry, continue.
Anyway, yeah, so they fought this little bubble creature, and it was just really not really special. I felt, and then at the very end they beat the bubble creature, but there's clearly an indication like, hey, this is continuing. These will now be girls that sorry, save game. These will now be girls that will be, oops, sorry, I'm trying to multitask here. Classes, that's what I want. Will now be really involved in this kind of series and fighting, and we should expect this from them. But then they're having like real school life conversation. It was just really, it didn't know what it was.
I think the one thing that really summed it up for me was where you saw this battle and they were all talking about like, oh, you should do this, you should like combat in this way. And then suddenly it was Unita, who is the main character, was very shy, and it came across as though she didn't know them, or that, she was shy about making friends. But yet, just 5 minutes earlier, they'd been having this intense battle, and there was no like feeling that they'd only just met each other, that they'd only just become friends, or so the tonal shifts were jarring for me, and I don't think it was very focused in its genre.
Yeah, I agree.
So moving on now, the next anime was Net-juu no Susume, and that translates to the recommendation of a virtual life. So this starts off with a woman. She comes home with a a flower bouquet. She throws it in the bin, and then she looks up. It becomes obvious that she's lost her job, or maybe she quit a job. We don't know. And then she looks up an MMO to play. She takes on a cross-playing character, so she's a male character in the anime.
In the game in the anime.
In the game in the anime, yeah. And she meets a female character called Lily. There's quite a funny moment right at the start that I commented on where she can't beat like a first boss, so obviously this MMO is brutally difficult, grindfest style. And then you see this romance develop between her and Lily, and the end of the first episode ends with the actual two real life people crossing paths. They don't actually meet, but they cross paths. So that was really intriguing to me. I thought it was going to be a romance that was based purely around the MMO, but I think they might just go for making the romance more real life as well.
I thought it was, I mean, as a MMO player, I really loved the idea that it was kind of like a game, an anime within the game, and that in that game she was kind of able to express herself more than she was able to in her real life per se. But it's definitely one of the things that is definitely implied in that first episode is that there are people around her that may be playing this game as the characters that she interacts in the world, and so that really sets it up for something really interesting, hopefully in the next few episodes. I thought, you know, she as a character herself just seemed really kind of non-approachable, but as she interacted with characters in the MMO, she was really much more vibrant, and her personality kind of came out, and I thought that was really cool. I was
I love the comment she was making about I'm not succeeding with a man in MMO world. She was definitely really into it in that sort of like.
I'm excited to see what happens. I thought this was a good random a good random kind of hit that we hit on, and it just kind of hits on a few things. Also too, she's a little bit of an older character, so you're talking about someone that's like 25 and up probably, and so as an older anime fan, I was like, hey, so I was able to relate to some of that. I thought it was cool.
It is nice to get out of the school every now and then, you know. So.
I don't know. That's kind of weird sounding from you since you love your school life. Anyway.
So moving on to the third anime we watched, it was called Evil or Live. So this is a horror genre, and it's set in a time where internet addiction has become a serious problem. And, I mean, I laugh at that because we're here now watching YouTube. Is it not already a serious problem? Who knows? Anyway, teens are placed into a rehab to help them get over their addiction. This place is really given a feel of being lawless and out of control, and really nothing more than sort of a prison, if anything. The one problem I had with this was that instead of going through the more psychological aspects, there was a lot of sexual themes. It was they were rampant and they were everywhere. I mean, I get the idea that they were trying to make a feeling in the first episode of a desperacy and what these teens would actually do to gain internet access. We can joke about that in the comments, but I think it came off as being more fetishistic than it actually did.
Is fetishistic a word?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, well,
I guess... know. Someone in the comments will pull me up on it if it isn't.
Well, but... I definitely agree on that. I thought it was, I really thought it was going to be, like, edgy and grindy and, like, you know, just based on, like, the opening, that there was going to be some, you know, fighting, and I just really wanted it to be, I guess based on kind of the first impression of the opening, I thought it was going to be, like, you know, just... like violent, of course, but just edgy and like really plot driven, and it just kind of came off as like, let's just throw in some random sexual things, like and then it never crosses into like hentai or anything like that, but it definitely like it definitely implies some really kind of like bizarre situations, and they really aren't really justified or explained. I mean, they're trying to like I said, they're trying to show this desperacy on, you know, why you can't have internet and how it affects them, but really, like, there's no one really to connect with, and I'm not really sure why.
I mean, the sexual theme could have been done if it was only like one instance, but it wasn't. It was like every single scene like had its own sexual overtone.
Exactly.
You know, like,
surprise.
So
let's have another sexual overtone.
Yeah, I mean, if the first few scenes had been violence and then someone tries to work that angle, I could have accepted that. It's the horror genre, it's a more edgy genre, but it just felt like it was sexual. I have to say I really didn't like this anime at all.
Yeah, I was disappointed. I was looking for something edgy, you know, like this was just not for me.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so as a final recommendation, we actually passed our first our first test. It only took maybe 10-15 minutes.
I'm really just picking at these things randomly, so if it happened, it happened.
Hopefully
usually
you
take a little bit of time to really plan out the things you make her better at. Right now I'm just kind of moving us along, and so
you probably just killed yourself.
Probably. You may actually, no I didn't. Anyway, so
as a recommendation, which out of the three, which would you watch?
Oh, absolutely, recommendation of A Virtual Life. Absolutely, out of those three. And yeah, it was definitely, it stood its ground way above the other two.
Yeah, I think it was leagues above the other two we watched, and it would definitely get my recommendation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
so that's this part of Chibi Chat.
Thanks for joining us again. Come down, make sure down below, subscribe, like, comment, ask us questions, and so and any suggestions, and we'll make sure that we see you soon.
Goodbye, everyone.